Hey everybody, it's Danielle Damianov with Wind Down Wednesday, and I am here with Elizabeth Cantu. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited. So Elizabeth is an ER nurse, but one of the things that is so cool is she has a coaching business called Invida Coaching. And she also has the Emergency Network podcast that we'll talk about a little bit later. But she is an ER nurse. She's in California. And the Invida coaching, I think, is so unique because it's such like a niche that you have, but it's also, in my opinion, so important, to have. So why don't you tell everybody, I guess, a little bit about you and a little bit about the coaching that you're doing?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Danielle. I'm so excited to be here with you. So Invida coaching is specific for emergency room nurses and first responders. So being that I've been an ER nurse for well over 15 years, I know the stress that it can have in your personal life and in your relationships. A lot of times we're the helpers. So it's really difficult for us to ask for help. And almost there's a stigma around it because we're the go-to people. So it's almost a sign of weakness when you're asking for help. However, people don't realize that our job is not normal. So the things we see, the things we experience, it's not normal. And we're not robots. We're
Right.
human. And it doesn't mean we're weak if we feel sad, because we saw pediatric trauma or, you see people that have been victims of crime. I mean, that is very difficult to deal with, especially when you have this heart to serve. It's really hard to see other people hurting. And, then you have to be able to process that on your own. It
Right.
can be really challenging.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, there's people that are cut out to be a nurse and a doctor and everything. I am definitely not one of those people. So thank you so much for everything that you do. And I know with like times right now, it's got to be even more difficult than it normally is.
Yeah.
So with your coaching, one of the things that you and I were talking about before that I really liked you saying was that you're dealing with people that might have burnout or might feel burnt out and just don't know where to go or who to turn to, and you're offering that solution and really helping them figure out either number one how to deal with it or where to transition to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So, the thing that's really challenging is you become a family, right? So you become so close with your coworkers because you're saving lives together. I mean, there is such a special bond that you hold with your teammates. It really is like your second family, and you spend so much time with them. Now, the problem is that some people get burnt out and they don't know where to turn to, or they just get super overwhelmed and they're calling off sick. They're like becoming toxic at work, and not because they want to, it's because they don't know how to leave. And so some people just end up quitting altogether, and really when they could just transfer to another department, or maybe they can go back and get some education or start their own business. They just need to have the support and the guidance, because it's almost like this roller coaster. One day you have a really great day and you're saving lives and you're working really great with your teammates. And then the next day it's like super busy, you're short staffed, it's overwhelmed, and you don't want to be there. So it's like this roller coaster, so then you have another day where you guys save lives and you're like, I love this job. And the next day you're like, oh my God, I hate it. But there's no support to help you, either move out or move up. And I think that that's really important, because you have, everybody has so many, critical thinking, problem solving skills, and just even being able to communicate with people and relate. There's so many amazing skills that these individuals have that are transferable to so many other areas in
Right.
different, in different jobs and business also. So I help them with that. Like if, you come to me, like I can help you either transfer out of your department, or let's talk about a plan to start your own business or do something else,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, and as you had mentioned, I mean, sometimes they just get self-destructive and self-sabotage, and then that just creates a vicious cycle as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, people start, drinking. Unfortunately, they'll do drugs, maybe even step out on their spouse. I mean, and the thing that people don't realize is, I mean, we're human, so we have all of our unhealthy coping mechanisms that we had from childhood coming into a really high stress job. And so, I mean, you have to think about that too. Some people that, um, coming into this line of work, if you're not able to cope with stress well, you're not going to do well,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and it's definitely high stress, especially ER, especially
Yeah.
being in the ER.
Hmm.
And so what your coaching business is doing is specifically helping ER nurses, doctors, anybody that's in the medical profession. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an ER nurse, but anybody that's in that profession, right? That is just looking for another solution, or even, ways to help fix, themselves, heal themselves. Maybe they don't want to transition to a different department, but they want to stay where they are, but work
Right.
on themselves,
Yeah.
right? Learn more
Yes.
techniques.
Absolutely. And sometimes you don't know, a prime example. Sometimes, the problem isn't the problem. What they think is the problem isn't the problem. So I had a new nurse that I was working with and training her. And after like a month, she said, I just can't do this anymore. And the first day when she was in the ER, she's like, oh my God, I love this job. It's the best thing ever. So as I started asking her more questions and really getting down to, okay, what just happened? A month ago you were like so stoked to be here, you're doing a great job, you're really stepping into your role. I was really proud of her. And as we started talking more, she was having financial problems and then having problems in her marriage. So because of those problems outside of work, it was then weighing on her, and when she came to work she wasn't able to focus and be 100%. So it wasn't, after we talked about it and she got that off her chest, and then she was able to come up with a plan for her husband and her finances, then she was fine. She's like, oh my gosh, I do love my job. So it could be just that, you're stressing at home and you bring that to work, and it's a really hard place to work if things are falling apart at home.
Right. Well, and I think also, I mean, you and your job, a lot of people have a lot of issues that go on with their lives and they don't know how to cope and they do bring it to work. But in your job, it's a lot harder because you have to work as a team, right? And if another team member is not pulling their weight, that brings frustration, not just for that person, but for everybody that's working on the same team.
Yeah, it's true. It is true. Some people don't pull their weight, but what I see more often than not is people actually do. They come together because when someone is dying, everybody's running in to help because
Right.
that's how we are, right? We are like built on that adrenaline. But then some people, what they end up doing is they run to work and they only want to be, that's what I did because I didn't want to be home. I wanted to be at work all the time because it made me feel good. It made me feel good because I was saving lives, and my coworkers were like, yeah, this is awesome, we're doing this together. It was such a cohesive team. So, and that can be a problem too. People end up losing their marriages because like Tony Robbins talks about this 6 human needs, and one of them is for significance and connection, or two of them. And so being at work, that was that for me. And so people will do whatever it takes to fulfill that human need, whether it's positive or negative. And so if they're not getting that at home, they're getting it at work.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that can, I mean, definitely create a problem as well, where
Mhm. Yeah, people end up getting divorced and, they don't know what happened to their marriage. But
yeah.
that's what the lack of communication.
So, and I think what is important and what you found was clarity around everything, and that's why you focus on, the burnout. And the burnout can be just where you're 100% so focused on work, or you're burnt out because you don't want to be at work anymore, right? You
Right,
don't want to be doing that.
absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about the Emergency Network podcast.
Oh, okay. So the Emergency Network podcast is so fun. So fun. I'm so grateful that we even have these platforms available. But people have come, they share their stories. So I have law enforcement officers, emergency room physicians, emergency room nurses come on and share their story of burnout. And because my I want to bring awareness to this because it's a big deal. And I feel like there's just not enough resources. And so that's my mission on this earth is to shift that culture and to be able to help give more resources.
Yeah.
So
So really it's people coming on and just telling their story about, either how they've experienced burnout or dealt with it and different things like that.
yeah, yes. And even, some really crazy stories too. I mean, I've had a nurse that or a cop that didn't even want to share who she was. So it's totally anonymous. And
Ah,
because they want to share stories of real life stuff that's happening out there. And like I said, I think it's important because I haven't heard of anywhere else, any other podcast sharing that. Maybe I- maybe I don't, I had just haven't heard about it, but yeah, it's been pretty interesting.
that's awesome. So where can people find that podcast?
So you can find it on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, and it's Emergency Network Podcast.
The
And it's
emergency, I have to listen to it. I have
yeah,
to hear the stories. um,
that's cool.
yeah. So is there anything else that you want to kind of like bring up or anything that we didn't mention?
No, I mean, if you are a nurse, if you are a firefighter or police officer and you feel like you are just burned out and maybe you're struggling at home or with work, maybe you want to find a way out and you want some support, I mean, I'm totally there for that. And if I cannot be the person to help support you, I will find the right help for you. So, just because it's not me doesn't mean that I'll stop at, I'll do whatever it takes to help them find the support that they need.
I love that because I haven't heard of other people, doing that either. So if you are out there and you're in that profession and just looking for, I can tell you that Elizabeth is an amazing, amazing resource. She has that coaching that is life changing and really can, make a difference for people. So if you are needing, to connect with her, all of her contact info is in the video. So you can find her through there, listen to her podcast, the Emergency Network podcast. I'm sure there's some crazy stories on there. So make sure you check out her podcast, and all of her info is in the video. Thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed talking to you. I know you're awesome at what you do, and thank you so much for, really doing this for people because it's definitely needed. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I appreciate it too. I appreciate your time and having me on here to share. So,
All righty. We'll see everybody later. Bye.
bye.